Welcome to Big Blend Radio's Global Adventure Show with travel writer Debbie Stone.
Everybody, you know, it is the fourth Tuesday of the month, and that is time to hang out with the Fire Monkey. Her real name is Debbie Stone. She's a travel writer. She goes all over the world, across the country, and today she is taking us to Scotland's Isle of Skye, and I'm thinking this is magic land. I have dreamed about going there because I have read all about fairies, and I at one point became a little obsessed about fairies. Because are they real? Some people really believe it. I interviewed an author once about the realness of fairies, and the Isle of Skye was like a huge portion of her book, and she went out looking for fairies around the world, and she found them apparently. But the Isle of Skye was a huge deal. So I'm so excited about this, and I know you guys are all going to enjoy this conversation. Debbie's got a great article about it. It is all linked up in the episode notes. So hey, Debbie, how are you?
I'm doing well. And yes, Isle of Skye, I don't know whether you believe in fairies or you don't. I think there's just something kind of mystical about this place. I've always really wanted to go there, and I'd been in Scotland before this previous trip and had never gotten up there, and this time I was determined to get there because, like you, I've heard so much about that whole fairy folklore and the ancient castles and even the Viking and the Celtic history, and, you know, it's just this kind of wonderland that really does, and it's oftentimes shrouded in mist, and so you get this real feel for it, and you almost can think, yeah, I think there might be fairies there, you know. It's one of those places, and they have lots of attractions or lots of sites to see that have a lot of folklore to them, and that involve fairies, and also that involve giants and different creatures, and so you can kind of get swept up in all of this, and it's to me it was just a wonderful experience to be there.
And then you also talk about there's these castles and all these myths like you're talking about with the giants. I'm all into that, the fairies, of course, but then it's really just a charming destination as well if you want to go shopping, go to distilleries, that kind of thing.
Absolutely, and it really is just, I think, a wonderful place for people if you like the outdoors, particularly because there are plenty of wonderful places to hike, to trek, to just walk to. And yes, there's a number of castles there that are just, you know, really special and also wrap you up into this whole ambiance as well.
It's fun. I'm excited. Let's start at the castles. Do you think?
Sure.
Dunvegan or vegan or vegan? I don't know. Dunvegan? Eilean? Oh my gosh, I'm in trouble.
Let me try to help you here. It's Dunvegan, and then the other castle is Eilean Donan. So that's how it's pronounced. Eilean Donan and Dunvegan. So the first one, Dunvegan, is really this big fortress in the Highlands. First of all, the Isle of Skye is in the Highlands of Scotland, and it used to be that you'd have to take a ferry to get there, but now they have this wonderful sky bridge, so you can reach it. You know, it's accessible from the mainland. So when we started out from Inverness, and then you drive up and you drive over the bridge, and you're at Skye. So it's pretty easy to get to now. But Dunvegan, it says that it really captures that spirit of the Isle of Skye, and it's got kind of different architectural styles because the clan chiefs, whoever was in charge, they decided what style they wanted to put their own print on it, so to speak. And there's fairy flag there, which is, speaking of fairies, it's mounted on one of the walls, and there's a story about how the fairies gave this flag as a gift to one of the clan leaders, and that it had this incredible magic which could come in handy during battle. And so that's still there, and it's faded and tattered now, but it has such a fun story behind it. And then you go in and all these decorated rooms, staterooms, main halls, and this castle, though, it's been occupied by the same family for 800 years, something to be said for longevity. And in fact, the current clan chief, one of the MacLeod, I think it's MacLeod, he stays there on occasion. So it does have somebody who actually occupies it at times, which is continuing that 800-year longevity cycle. So, and of course, there are an incredible former formal gardens, which most castles have. And so that one, and the Eilean Donan is the other one, excuse me. And so it's I would say this is the most iconic and also the most photographed of images of Scotland. So if you see a castle, it typically is Eilean Donan. I mean, it's been in a lot of movies as well. So it's surrounded by incredible scenery. It's on an island, and there's lochs or lakes around it. Has a long history, goes back to the 13th century. But what is interesting is that it was almost destroyed, and it lay in ruins for over 200 years until this colonel came into the picture, and he bought the whole area, the island and the castle, and he proceeded to restore it to its former glory. And it was a 20-year labor of love to reconstruct it, and he finally reopened the castle in 1932. You'll see it in terms of what it looked like back then, with a lot of period decor and a lot of artifacts. It's just a very cool castle to visit.
That's awesome, man. And then what about this Kilt Rock?
It's another one of these well-known sites, and it's got its name because it's rocks that are stacked on top of each other, and they look like the pleats of a tartan kilt. So that's how it got
that's
its name.
Wild,
but it was
isn't
actually. It's crazy, and you look at it, and you're like, you're right. They're right. It does look like a kilt.
And you're in Scotland. That's the thing.
Yes.
You know what I mean? I mean, it could have happened somewhere else, but I think it gives you a little like, ooh, we don't know everything in the world, do we? Kind of feeling to it. I also think regions like that.
Yeah, but I also think it's fun how names get, given, so to speak, to images or to geographical or geological formations. And this one was a volcanic formation that occurred, umpteen years ago. And it's a huge high wall. And you look at it and you're like, yeah, I can see those pleats. I can see what they're talking about.
It's crazy cool, though. I love that kind of thing, though. And I always want to go there. The other thing is you said that waterfalls are something that people can look for.
Absolutely. There's waterfalls in many places on Isle of Skye. Milt Falls, which is near Kilt Rock, is there. Rogie Falls is another really wonderfully beautiful natural landmark, and it is also one of these places to watch the salmon run if you're there in middle of summer to September. And it's has a suspension bridge, so it's got all those ingredients to make it one of these very charming places. And so the several falls that people can go to. I like waterfalls. It's a magnet for me.
Yeah, I think we all love chasing waterfalls. It's the same thing as looking for fall flower. Not fall flowers, but the fall foliage. We're peepers, waterfall chasers, I'm flower power person too. But you know what? To me, it's all wonderful rabbit holes. And that's what travel is that we just, you get to see these things. I've had this in my, body to go where you just were. And it's like, wow, okay, it's so good to have this, reminder to keep that spirit alive of actually going there. I think every time someone reads another article on some place that they've been thinking about, it pushes them that little bit further to save up and go,
Absolutely.
Those nudges. So I think when you read something like this, you're like, this was worth going, right? This was.
Oh my gosh, absolutely. Well, Scotland itself is just a wonderful country to visit for people. So it's the people are gracious. It's just the countryside is amazing. The history, everything. It's such an interesting country, and it's a relatively easy country to get around as well.
Now, the Old Man of Storr. I'm getting better at pronouncing these, right? Apparently, you need to go there first, and then you'll get it. I can understand my Scottish friends, but it doesn't mean I can say what they can say.
Yeah, no, the Old Man of Storr, he's on Trotternish Ridge. So he's another really famous landmark, and he's another really large pinnacle of rock. And there's a lot of legends about the Old Man of Storr. And so one of them was about the giants who actually were supposedly roamed the island, and they were always fighting with each other. And during one of these battles, this very large giant was killed in that area. And the land supposedly swallowed his body over time, except for one part, which was left poking above the ground. And some people see it as the thumb of the giant, and some people see it as another part of his body. It's whatever you perceive.
See, I just like that it's the Old Man of Storr, so it's like it's the Old Man of Story,
Yeah, definitely. But it's just, he's often covered by clouds, and we got a glimpse of, him and the piece that was sticking up, and, you can really think about, okay, what does that look like, and then he gets covered by clouds again. So, he appears and then he disappears, which is also another interesting part because the mist comes in, the mist goes out.
See, there's these legends all over the world, and like in Iceland, right? There's
Yes.
stories like that, and there's like certain waterfalls, like I think that was Iceland too, with the legends behind
Yep.
the waterfalls, even Hawaii. If you think about these myths and legends over geology, ooh, I spy a new show coming up, a new podcast coming up, myths and legends of geography, right?
Oh, yeah. There's so many of them. My gosh. I love the legends, or even the history behind something, or how somebody, gave it this name. Why did they give it this name? And, whether it was some, explorer that gave it the name. I love learning about, kind of the story behind the name. That's always really fun. But, the folk legends are fun too. In Scotland, they always feature these mischievous fairies, these creatures. And so with the Old Man of Storr, another one of those legends concerns those fairies. There was a couple who used to climb to the top of the hills every day. And so they got older. The wife couldn't make the climb. So her husband carried her on his back. And, he got to the point where he couldn't really do this, but he really didn't want to leave her behind. So supposedly the fairies had been watching all this, and so they went to the man and they told him they would grant his request, and all he had to do was carry his wife up the hill one more time. So they got to the top, but those, mischievous fairies, they turned the couple into a huge stone pillar. And as they had promised, the husband would no longer go anywhere without his wife, because they were now together forever. Joined. So that's kind of an interesting one too.
A whole other joint at the hip.
Yes. So fairies and giants, figured prominently in that particular geographical or geological formation. So that was a fun story to hear as well.
That's great, but they are naughty. Like the lady that who wrote the book on the fairies and going around, because they're folk tales too, And she went to Mexico, and she said there were these little fairies that pinch your butt. The male fairies will pinch her butt. And she was in a bathroom somewhere in Mexico where these fairies were supposed to be. And literally, she got pinched on the butt. That's what she said. And I'm like, okay, well, this is what she believes, I don't know. Don't know what you were doing. But she did. This was a huge area. And then you went to fairy pools and fairy glen. I mean, this is a bucket list item for many people.
I think, the fairy pools is just drop dead gorgeous. I mean, it's jaw-dropping. It's these beautiful blue pools that are flowing down into a river, and, it's surrounded by all these mountains and this forest, and it's just absolutely stunning. And it also, of course, has legend and folklore behind it. Supposedly it's a door into the fairy realm. The fairies use those pools to go in between the human world and their world. And then, the fairy glen is basically a very unusual geological formation. And one of the things that's there is this rock feature called the Castle Ewan, and you climb the steep path up to the so-called castle. It's just a feature, but it looks like a medieval fortress that's crumbling, and you get this incredible view of the whole area. So that's another place. You go from the pools to the glen to the there's just all these wonderful places. I mean, people could probably find so many other ones that are not as well known, that still have many stories from the villagers and the people that live around the area.
And then Portree, that's going to be something that people want to go to experience as well.
I think it's a great place to base yourself on Skye, because it's considered the capital of the island, and it has these incredibly wonderfully hued, colored houses, and it was a fishing village, and it's you can find everything that you need there, whether it's place to stay, place to eat, shops, information centers, etc. And so staying there makes a lot of sense for a lot of people, because from there they can just go out to which other area of the island they want, and then come back to Portree if they are using it as a base.
That's fun. I like that. I just like all the colored houses. See, that's another thing we have around the world. Remember Cape Town has them?
Absolutely.
You've been to Oceanside, right? Yeah.
Of course.
There's colored houses there too. I love it. I love it. So while you were there, okay, so everybody, Debbie ate haggis. Fire monkey.
Not then, but in my former life I did, because I am a pescatarian. So if you're a pescatarian, which I am, haggis is not something you will eat. But I did years and years ago when I was backpacking in the British Isles. I did, and I wasn't a complete pescatarian then, but there's haggis and there's black or white pudding, and these are basically very traditional Scottish foods. And, a lot of people, want to experience, what's something that's traditional when you go visit. And so probably knowing the ingredients is not a good idea. So it's best if you really want to try something, just go try it. And then later, if you want to find out what the ingredients, what really is in it, then you can do so. But knowing, and when I tried haggis and the puddings years ago, I did not know what was inside them. Of course, then I found out, and I was a little bit horrified.
See, now there's whiskey. But wait, scones and shortbread.
Scones and shortbread and Cullen skink, which is a haddock
that's right.
chowder. Also, any of the fish, they have a lot of different fish, whether it's hake or haddock or Scottish salmon. It's
fish and chips.
There's lots fish and chips, But the scones. They say scones, I think is how I've heard it. But I love the clotted cream and the jam, and they're so delicious. But Scottish whiskey, of course, Scotland is big. It's the home to I think it's like lots and lots and lots, 100 and some grain distilleries, and it's got the greatest concentration of whiskey production in the world, actually. So you can go to a pub and try it, but I think it's fun to go to a distillery. And so we went to Talisker, which is I think it's the oldest distillery on the Isle of Skye. So that's something interesting to do. You can go for a tour there, you can go for a tasting, and so I highly recommend if anybody's interested in the whole whiskey culture to go to a distillery.
Okay. I did when I was a little girl, and I didn't get to taste it, but I did think it smelled bad. It was not in the yeast part of it, It's the same with going to a brewery, it was I don't know how you adults drink this stuff. And then, things change, as we all do. Now I can appreciate it. And I've been to many Scotch whiskey tastings or Scottish whiskey tastings, and it really, and the Isle of Skye, I remember doing a tasting just on the Isle of Skye because of all the different areas there. And so the different whiskeys from different places and,
Absolutely. So, they all have their own formulas, so to speak, or the types of water that they use. I mean, everything, it makes a different type of barrels. I mean, it's just every distillery has its own thing, its own process to make it. Yeah, it's very interesting to try the different ones. I'm not a big whiskey person at all, but I think it's always interesting to try things.
You should, yeah. I mean, it's something when you travel, unless you're allergic to it or something, but it's just at least try it. Try something so you get an understanding. And I think when you do these kinds of distillery tours or like the food tours that you do, you're more apt to try it, but have an appreciation better than someone says, ooh, eat lutefisk, try lutefisk, and everybody goes, ew, that is not used to eating that. And remember, people are eating this, right? And they love it. That's their delicacy. Right. And so maybe our palates just weren't raised that way or with the food of that region. So it's different to us. But so it's not a poo-poo, yay, nay. But to a lot of people, lutefisk may not be the most exciting dish. But I think it's something that if you're on a tour and you start to understand how and why and the history behind it and the people behind it all, when you taste it, I think it actually tastes better than if you didn't have that. I don't know how to explain that. But our negativity goes away a little bit, or our fear.
Yeah, and I think, if you understand, how the tradition got started and, what type of agricultural products are important in that country that they grow and, what people did years ago and how something, really became, the food there. It became common and popular. And, I think that all adds to the whole aspect instead of just somebody saying, here, try some haggis. It's like, you want to know a little bit more. At least I do. I think it enhances the whole situation. I may not like the food, but trying it, I think, like we said, is just it's part of travel. I didn't eat them, but there are sheep, and they say there are more sheep than people on the island, which they often say about New Zealand and other places. But when I was there, there was lamb season, so it was so much fun to see those little cuties stumbling around the fields. And the cows are really interesting. They have this Beltway Galloway breed that's they're commonly known as Oreo cows because they have this white belt that runs, around them, and it contrasts with their black coat. So they look like Oreos, and they are just, they're so charming. And also the Highland cattle, they call them hairy coos, the Scots call them, and they're very popular because they have this very shaggy coat. It's kind of gingery, and they are huge. They weigh over 1,000 pounds. They have these long horns, and, to tell the females from the males, we were told, look at their horns, because the females go up and the males are straight ahead. So the cows are really interesting, it's and knowing something about them and why they are important or why they are special is fun as well. I've had that too. I've been in a field and been chased. It was in England. No, it was in Wales when we were doing the Wales coastal path. We had to go, you go through a lot of, farmland, so to speak. So, you're just in these fields, and, there was a sign saying, just caution, there is a bull on the land somewhere, but the land is vast, and so you don't know where the bull is. And, yep, there was a bull.
You will thank me later.
Yes, after the fact, yes.
You may
Yes, from my recent trip to Italy and to Spain. Yeah, I'm looking forward to sharing some destinations and sharing some stories about food, which will be fun, I think. We all love foods.
Always
absolutely. Yep.
Love
absolutely.
It.
Well, thank you so much, and I'm looking forward to it. Take care.
Thanks for listening to Big Blend Radio's Global Adventures Show with travel writer Debbie Stone. Debbie is here every fourth Tuesday. You can keep up with us at bigblendradio.com.